It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All the sports news you need every day in under 20 minutes. Follow Locked On today on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts. Your Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Flyers podcast for Monday, August 2nd. Your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high-quality content that is happy we get a little bit of a break from all of this Flyers and NHL news that's been happening since last week. I just feel like it's been go, go, go. So many things have been happening.
Yeah, it's actually an off season now, I think.
Yeah, it truly is. Like, the news has slowly been coming out and it hasn't even been anything huge. So I'm thankful for a little bit of a break. But to keep up with the Flyers nonetheless, you can follow us on Twitter at Locked On Flyers. You'll get all of our episodes, like I said, Flyers news, Phantoms news, and we have a weekly mailbag, so you can always send us questions on Twitter. But if you don't have Twitter, you can also email us at lockedonflyers@gmail.com. We are your hosts. I'm Danielle.
And I'm Rachel.
And if you need more hockey news, check out Locked On NHL. It's our daily podcast on everything happening in the leagues. Subscribe and listen each day for a quick look at the biggest stories, game recaps. Subscribe to Locked On NHL today, wherever you get your podcasts. In today's episode, we are going to talk about the few NHL news that came out, some signings, some Jack Eichel drama, and then we're going to talk about some Phantoms news that came out last week that we didn't get a chance to touch on, and of course wrap up with our nemesis of the week. Locked On Flyers is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you are currently listening, so make sure you subscribe to get all of our episodes here on the Locked On Sports Network. All right, so let's get into some signings. It came out last week that Michael Raffl signed with Dallas for a 1-year, $1.1 million cap hit. That's, not a bad cap hit, not a bad contract for Dallas or for Michael Raffl. I don't know if Dallas is going to be a playoff contender, but I'm wishing Michael Raffl well wherever he goes.
I was definitely glad to see him get signed somewhere, especially because he's had, those injury woes this past year. And even when he got traded to the Caps, he wasn't able to play with them right away due to that. So I hope he really gets a good shot at contributing to that team because, as we know, he can pretty much slot in wherever, whenever, and be helpful to his line mates.
It's also a little bit nice for him not to be in the division anymore because I can root for him at Dallas. I don't know if I could have root for him with the Caps.
Yeah, that was a problem.
Next, Brandon Saad signed with the St. Louis Blues for 5 years and a $4.5 million deal per year. Surprised that he went to St. Louis, but I knew that he was going to go somewhere else since the Avs signed their captain, Gabriel Landeskog. It definitely didn't seem like they had enough money to give to Saad.
Yeah, it's tough when you get squeezed out like that, but he seems to have landed in a really good position with St. Louis, although it is kind of weird to see him in St. Louis. I don't know why, but I think because he's played on some of the division rivals that it just seems weird. But I think that he has a really good chance there, and St. Louis doesn't look bad right now. So
No, I agree with you. And I think that after the season that he had with the Avs, I think that kind of rejuvenated him. I can't say that fully, but it just didn't seem like the last time he went back to Chicago, he was as productive as you normally see Brandon Saad. So I think that, limited time he was with the Avs, that definitely gave him a jolt. So good for him to have that deal. Another deal, which is huge, came from Columbus. They re-signed Zach Werenski. He signed a 6-year extension with the Blue Jackets, carrying an AAV of $9.583 million. That is insane.
Amongst all of the defensemen that signed free agent deals or did trades with extensions, this is my favorite contract by far, because I want to believe in my heart of hearts that he was being petty and wanted to make more than Seth Jones. That part of it makes me so happy. So I'm just going to believe it's true for the rest of time.
That's a lot of money. I don't know if I would say that Zach Werenski is worth that much money, but we will see.
Oh no, not at all. I just love that he negotiated it.
I'm definitely interested to see how he performs this season without Seth Jones as his partner in Columbus. But man, that's a ton. It makes me, I mean, there was no way that Ivan Provorov would have made this amount of money, but it definitely makes me happy that his contract is what it is and not something like this.
Exactly. And you look at what the Flyers are paying for their top pairing defensemen right now, you kind of have to smile about it, because with all these like 9 to 9.5-ish million contracts for term getting handed out this week, I think you can argue if you think that Ryan Ellis was the right option or not, but you have Provorov making 6.75 and Ellis making 6.25. That's a hell of a lot less than all these other guys who, you know, some of whom, sure, I think Hamilton is better than Provorov and Ellis. I feel like I can say that comfortably. Is he $3 million more better? I don't know, but we'll see how he does with the Devils. I just think with the Werenski deal and, you know, Seth Jones contract and Cale Makar's contract. I mean, Cale Makar's really good. Yeah. So I guess he's another one that you're like, yes, he's probably worth that money. But I just feel like the Flyers are in a good position with how much they're spending on their top pairing defensemen.
So moving on to the Jack Eichel versus the Buffalo Sabres saga. It is still ongoing. And this past weekend, Jack Eichel's his management came out with a statement saying that the process is not working. They fully anticipated a trade at the start of the NHL free agency period and were agreed upon and prescribed a period for rehabilitation early in June of this year. His agent said that the Sabres medical staff agreed to that, and then it came out that they did not. And so it seems like the Sabres medical staff is kind of putting a halt on Jack Eichel getting the surgery that was agreed upon. And if he kind of needs to get it within this time frame because to be able to play this upcoming season. There's a lot of questions on why they're delaying the surgery, if they're doing it so that Jack won't be able to start in this upcoming season, why they're not trying to trade him now. Seems like they're taking advantage. I mean, Jack's agents were saying that, lastly, what is being left out of the discussion is that Jack would be able to play in the NHL for the start of the season pending the medical clearance if he was allowed to have the season at this date. And he's repeatedly asked the Sabres since June, and they have, you know, not said anything. And basically they're ultimately stopping Jack from playing in the NHL, and something needs to come of this. With this whole situation, the Sabres haven't said anything, which is not too surprising, but I mean, we've talked about Jack Eichel and the fact that the Sabres are kind of, you know, have that control over what he can and cannot do with his medical procedures. But the whole situation just seems pretty messy. I mean, I, like them, felt like Jack was going to get traded in the beginning of free agency, but that has yet to happen. And I don't know if they're waiting for the best deal, but in a situation like this, I don't know if they're ever going to get the best deal for Jack Eichel.
I am kind of at a loss to know what the machinations really are here, because you're right about the Sabres not saying anything, they're just cagey in general about all of this. And are the Sabres trying to devalue Jack Eichel to get back at Jack Eichel, but that then makes it harder for them to get what they want in a trade? Or are they purposefully demanding too much in a trade so that nobody will actually trade for him and Eichel will have to suffer? I mean, any of those are a possibility, right? I just don't know how this ends, to be honest.
It's crazy. I mean, it's such a messy situation, and I feel so bad for Jack, but I don't know. I just feel like the Sabres should just want to put Jack in a place where he's able to succeed. I mean, it's not his fault that this happened this way. And I know management is probably saying, well, it's not ours either because we weren't here when he was drafted. But I mean, someone has to take responsibility. And I really don't think it should be Jack Eichel in this situation, a star player in this league that definitely got dealt a bad hand. And that's just so not fair. The NHL season is officially in the off season, and now is the best time to turn to some other sports if you're thinking of betting on them. And the perfect place is to go to our friends at BetOnline. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your sports action.
And there are so many sports to choose from. You've got baseball, golf, MMA, UFC, auto racing, so many activities are out there to bet on. So before the next pitch or tee off, head over to BetOnline and check out all the latest sporting news, sign-up bonuses, and contest information. You can get real-time updated odds and props on almost anything you can imagine.
BetOnline has you covered for all the news, scores, and odds. It's the best way to place your bet, and it's free to sign up. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts.
David Harrison here, the Locked On Washington Football Team podcast, celebrating with you a 21 grain salute to a less boring sandwich thanks to Dave's Killer Bread. I don't know about you guys, but when I eat pizza, I eat it for the toppings, not the crust. And when I eat a sandwich, it's for what's inside the bread, not for the bread. But when I throw a sandwich on 21 whole grains and seeds, thin sliced bread from Dave's Killer Bread, it is the epitome of addition by subtraction. That thin sliced bread lets me focus on what's inside the sandwich, but also adds to the sandwich with killer taste, killer texture, killer nutrition, a subtle sweetness, and a seed-coated crust. Dave's Killer Bread is America's #1 organic bread for a reason. It tastes so stinking good. Dave's Killer Bread is made with the highest quality organic and non-GMO ingredients and is power-packed with whole grains, fiber, and protein. Visit daveskillerbread.com to learn more and look for Dave's Killer Bread in the bread aisle of your local grocery store.
All right, before we jump into some Phantoms news, there was some more drama within the NHL this past weekend, and it came from Evander Kane. This story is probably ongoing, so by the information we have now is probably already old, so apologies for that. But Evander Kane's wife posted on social media that Kane has a gambling problem and that he's been betting on NHL games, so much so that he lost the house and the car, and her and their daughter were forced to move out while Kane was overseas partying. The league, as soon as that came out, the league released a statement, said the league has been made aware of this evening's post on social media alleging that San Jose Sharks player Evander Kane bet on NHL games. The integrity of our game is paramount, and the league takes these allegations very seriously. We intend to conduct a full investigation and will have no further comment at this time. Then the Sharks also came out with a statement, and they said, the Sharks have been in contact today with the NHL about the serious allegations made against Evander Kane. We support a full and transparent investigation into the situation to maintain the integrity of the game and consistency with our team's values. Then Evander Kane came out and spoke on his behalf, which was against his lawyers. And he went to say that, he's never bet on the NHL games. His wife is crazy, and she says, I believe he tried to blame it on mental illness and said that he, sees his daughter, he's taking care of his family, and he doesn't bet on games. And then his wife came back again and was just airing even more information and refuted his claims of having mental illness, and the fact that, this could just be seen as stress because of all the things that he's been putting her through, and the fact that she's currently pregnant with their second child, and this is all happening, and she had to move out of the house. It was so much stuff. And there's so many things wrong with this story. It's not shocking because of who it is, but it's just very sad. It's just a sad thing. And yeah, I'll hold my peace, but the whole situation is just very unfortunate.
It is, and I do not understand why he made a statement against the wishes of his lawyers, because that's just, rule number one when you have legal issues going on. And I agree with you that, referencing mental illness with respect to somebody in a context like this just isn't appropriate.
Yeah.
And it's kind of it's offensive. It's not kind of offensive. It is offensive to, I think, people at large who are dealing with mental illness themselves, to kind of use it as a weapon in a disagreement. So that's the part of it that bothers me the most. But I think overall, I hope this kind of goes away in the sense that things are handled through the proper channels behind the scenes, and it's not a public display like this.
Yeah, I agree with you there. It was a lot, and it's so unfortunate. I mean, my heart just breaks for their daughter and their future kid, because it's just such a messy situation that you never want to see. All right, so moving on to some Phantoms news. Like we said, the Phantoms were pretty busy themselves last week, but we're just getting to the moves that they made. Chuck Fletcher signed some guys for the Phantoms. They re-signed Ryan Fitzgerald, who had the second highest point total last season, had 12 goals, 9 assists in 28 games. Then they signed an Iowa Wild forward, Jerry Mayhew. And in 2019-20 season, he had 39 goals in 49 games, won the MVP that season. So fingers crossed, hoping that Gary can make that happen.
I am very excited for Jerry Mayhew, because he not only had that amazing season where he won MVP, but he had 60 points the season before as well. So if he's just one of these guys that's going to shoot on the Phantoms, I think that's something they need, and he'll be a really good veteran presence for this team.
I'm wondering, if he can, like you said, score some goals for the Phantoms, do you think it's likely that the Flyers might take a chance and see how he does in the NHL if someone gets hurt for a short amount of time?
We'll see. Considering the depth forwards that they signed, I'm sure they'll go to them first. But he is on a two-way, so anything's possible, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, listen, 60 points, 39 goals. I could see the Flyers being a little enticed by that. I know I would be. But they also revamped the defense. They signed Adam Clendening from Cleveland, Nick Seeler, who spent most of the season on the Blackhawks taxi squad last season, but he was previously on the Iowa Wild. And then Cooper Zetch from Providence. So some new defensive guys. I don't know, I liked our old defense core, but definitely willing to see how these guys do and give them a chance in how they mesh with some of the prospects down there. I'm excited for these new guys. It's a whole new team, whole new coaching staff, so the Phantoms are definitely going to be interesting.
Clearly, Chuck Fletcher is dipping into the well of former Minnesota prospects or players here a little bit, so there's some familiarity. But it's always a challenge, I think, at the beginning of the Phantom season to see how some of the new vets will integrate with the quote-unquote more NHL potential prospects, and see how they can support those prospects in getting the right kind of ice time. And it'll be another fun one, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you. And speaking of fun, I have to talk about Built Bar because their flavors are just so good. It's always fun to decide which flavor I'm going to go to. I mean, I truly have one a day. They're that good. And that's because Built Bar is a soft protein bar that tastes like a candy bar. They have something for everyone. I mean, they have 18 flavors, chocolate with nuts. I'm partial to the caramel brownies and the cookies and cream, but also I've been recently getting into the carrot cake, Rachel, which you recommended, and you're not wrong. I have to agree. Carrot cake is very good.
It's so good. But the best part is that Built Bars are healthy. They're great if you're looking to lose or maintain weight while indulging in that delicious treat. I don't know how they do it, but they're an amazing combination of being low calorie and low sugar, but also high protein and high fiber. If you're on a special diet like keto, these will fit right in.
So go to BuiltBar.com and use promo code LOCKED15 and you'll get 15% off your next order. That's promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at BuiltBar.com.
I'm Kevin Ostreicher, host of the Locked On Ravens podcast, and attention shoppers, we now have taste in the bread aisle, Dave's Killer Bread. That's right, an organic bread that doesn't need 3 spoonfuls of sriracha jam to delight your taste buds. Dave's Killer Bread is a 21-grain salute to the end of boring bread. A brand on a mission to make the most of every loaf, to rid the world of GMOs and artificial ingredients, and plant the seeds of good in all that they bake. But Dave's Killer Bread has done more than raise the bar on bread. In fact, Dave's Killer Bread was built on the belief that second chances can change lives when its founder Dave, the guy with a guitar you see on every loaf, returned to the family bakery after 15 years in prison. Dave took that chance and ended up creating what would become the country's #1 organic bread while never forgetting his not-so-easy path. That's why at Dave's Killer Bread, they proudly practice second chance employment, hiring the best person for the job, regardless of criminal background. And by the taste of it, things have worked out rather well. Dave's Killer Bread. Bread amplified.
All right, before we jump into our Nemesis of the Week, one last Phantoms news, and that is Alex Lyon is gone from the organization. This was such a surprise. I was not expecting this, but the Carolina Hurricanes snatched him up, and he signed with them. With the Phantoms, Lyon posted a 75-54-22 record, 2.75 goals against, and a .913 save percentage. And we can't forget May 9th in 2018, where he won the longest game in AHL history with 94 saves. Alex Lyon, I just feel like he was just such a staple in the organization and with the Phantoms that it was just such a surprise to see that the Hurricanes nabbed him. But I'm wishing him well. I kind of am wondering, like, who's going to be the third goalie for the Flyers then?
Well, Samuel Ersson did come over. So we have Ersson, Ustimenko, and Sandstrom.
Okay.
Well, that'll rotate through. I assume one of them will go to Reading, maybe. Or they'll keep all 3 around Lehigh Valley. Certainly one of them will have to be available for call-ups. And I'm curious who that is going to be. And my money is on either Ersson or Sandstrom, but I don't know. We don't have Alex Lyon around anymore for those call-ups. That's for sure.
We don't. So, wishing him all the best. Wishing whoever gets called up all the best for the Flyers. Oh man,
that's for sure.
Both teams are so different that it's going to take a while to like remember who's where and who's going to be used in what position. It's a little exciting. So, like all of our other Mondays, let's jump into our Nemesis of the Week. Now, if you're a little new and you don't know what our Nemesis of the Week is, every Monday we identify who or what in hockey is our nemesis for this upcoming week. Last week we said the nemesis was that there is just too much happening in the NHL and covering for the Flyers and just around the league. So now we have a little bit of a break. We've digested all the information, all the trades, the schedules, everything that's going on. This week, I have to say, it's not specifically hockey, but it has some hockey in there. I'm going to say pro athletes chiding Simone Biles for removing herself from the Olympics due to her mental health. Specifically women's hockey, because some of the comments I've seen them say on Twitter are just really unfortunate. I mean, to me, pro athletes shouldn't endorse or encourage people to play when they're not mentally in the right mindset to do so, especially when, you know, these athletes are putting their life on the line. I mean, gymnastics is not a sport that you can just like, you know, be thinking of 5,000 different things while you're on a beam or you're vaulting yourself over a vault or on the uneven bars. One misstep and they could seriously injure themselves. Same with hockey too. I mean, it's probably, you know, I can't speak from experience, but I have done gymnastics in the past and it is like you can get hurt very easily. So it was just disappointing to see pro athletes and some women's hockey players chiding and making fun of Simone and saying that that she's not strong because she took herself out of that position. I mean, honestly, I would say she is strong for doing that because she did that on a global stage. So, that had to be mine this week.
Yeah, it's a good one for sure. And there was a lot of doubling down of you can't be a quitter takes, which just blows my mind. Again, considering it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that gymnastics is a dangerous sport, and they're not wearing pads like you do in football or hockey, which, have their own issues with safety and concussions and all of that. But gymnasts are just out there flying through the air at incredible speeds, doing incredibly complex tricks. And to think that Simone Biles, of all people, who is a world champion, an Olympic champion, doesn't know her own body and whether or not she is capable of competing at that level at that time, that's the part of it that other people are criticizing her, saying that she does not know herself well enough to make the right decision. And it's just so disrespectful on such a high level.
It really is. I could not agree more. And yeah, that has to be the nemesis of the week. It was just such a gross thing to see them say and like you said, double down on, and just disrespectful all around. So, not trying to end on a negative note, the Flyers fun thing, of course, it's about Alex Lyon, because we have to say goodbye. It was Alex with Gritty in the quarter hour of power, throwback to that, one of the first players to be on there. So, you gotta love Alex Lyon. I mean, he was a great goalie and depth goalie in the organization, but he was also really funny. I mean, he was actually, he had such a great attitude for Flyers or Phantom stuff. He was always down to do it, and definitely want to remember him with something super fun.
Oh, that was such a good one. One of the highlights of the quarter hour of power for sure.
Oh, absolutely. So with that, thank you guys so much for listening to today's show. We'll be back again on Wednesday. So we always want to hear from you guys. So if you have any questions for our mailbag, make sure you send them in on Twitter at LockedOnFlyers or LockedOnFlyers@gmail.com. I'm Danielle. You can find me on Twitter at Danielle_Nick. That's Danielle_NICC.
And I'm Rachel. I'm on Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
Thanks for listening and have a great day. Betting on the NHL doesn't have to be a guessing game if you listen to the new Locked On Bets podcast, hosted by your boy Q and handicapping expert Lee Sterling. Get daily picks, blowout specials, wrong team favored picks, and Lee Sterling's lock of the day. Follow the Locked On Bets podcast, brought to you by betonline.ag, wherever you get your podcasts.
What's going on, Locked On Podcast listener? If you're enjoying this podcast, and why wouldn't you be, and you happen to be a Penn State fan, make sure you join me, Kevin McGuire, host of the Locked On Nittany Lions podcast. We have just gone back to 5 days a week, so we're bringing you daily Penn State coverage. This is going to be a very challenging and a very fun season for Penn State football, and of course, they've been killing it on the recruiting trail as late, so if you want to get all caught up on all things Penn State Nittany Lions, now is as good a time as any to make sure you're following the Locked On Nittany Lions podcast. We're available on the Odyssey app or wherever you're following this particular Locked On podcast. And of course, you can catch us on Twitter at Locked On Nittany. So come join me, Penn State coverage every day, Monday through Friday, right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, on the Odyssey app, or wherever you get your podcast.
This episode is brought to you by Spotify Green Room. Have you ever listened to a podcast like this one and you wanted to bring up your own point or just chat with other people that are listening at the same time? Well, let me tell you about Spotify Green Room. This is the first social audio platform made just for sports fans. The app is free to download, and once you're in, you can talk with us, other fans, athletes, insiders in real time about your favorite sport or team. Download the app, currently available on iOS devices. Create a profile, link your Twitter, join one of the groups for the latest league updates, and then you'll see us there. Spotify Green Room, changing the way we talk sports.